Good. Cool.
This is The Art of Rock, where we talk about the process and experience of making music. It's brought to you by the patrons of Angelspit. Our intrepid guide, Carl Zug von Rock of that same band, can't be on the show this week. So in the meantime, I'm reading this script to let you know I'm helping to keep it going. My name is Raziel from the band You Shriek. The land that I'm on has historically been cared for by the Massachusetts tribe, so I'm taking a moment to honor the first people who lived, worked, and loved the Boston area long before colonization. And after taking a moment to consider that, we can talk about some of the creative work that we do on our respective plots of workshop, studio, atelier, Werkstatt, and maybe come up with some new things that we haven't thought of and talked about communally. Ivan, there is a bit of success, a whiff of accomplishment that I'm getting from your pre-show talk, and I'm kind of interested to know a little bit about the angle of that you've been trying to do some stuff and you've been feeling some success, and tell me about it. I'm interested. I think we all are.
Yeah, no, my everything I make, first stop is SoundCloud. It all goes to SoundCloud first because I use SoundCloud as my distributor or my agitator, or my everything. And for the longest time, 30 plays a month was a good month. I'm about to cross 300 for a month. And
10x. That's the thing. That's where you feel good, right?
oh, absolutely. I've discovered that building plays, like the biggest first trick is releasing stuff. And the most important part about that phrase is releasing stuff.
Like, I get you, and I know where you're coming from, but what is that transition from the idea coming to you? That, because you might not think of that. Like, people out there are like, I'm not going to put anything out. I don't want to. Might feel good to do it. Where did that change for you? How did that sort of develop?
And that's a big chunk of it right there. It does feel good. We're all, anybody in any creative field is probably, neurodivergent in one way or another. And I will fully admit that I spend plenty of time chasing after dopamine because I don't generally make that much. And it was, I did the chase hardware thing, did the, buy lots of plugins thing. And, I've absolutely done the go into the rabbit hole of like music theory and production videos on YouTube thing. And like the dopamine hit from those is not that good. It's not that good. And it's short. It doesn't last that long. The dopamine hit for releasing music and getting plays, though, is it just keeps working.
That is something that I think I would like you. You don't have to like refocus on it, but I want to underscore it in that buying gear is kind of sustainable. You can continue doing it, but it's depleting. You get a little bit far, but you do have to give a lot out. Creating work goes forever. You do that. That is you. You got to eat. You got to probably work or something, but this is from within you, and you're channeling the universe's energy and turning it into something, and that can go on forever. How are you getting this feedback to keep doing it? What's going on with that?
I've got I release a demo every like Tuesday or Wednesday. So like kind of early-ish in the week. I'm like not good at being hyper good at releasing on the same day yet. Give me a little time, I'll get better at it. But I do release every week now, and then watch the plays increase as a result. Because the nice thing about having it on SoundCloud is like instant access to like all my stats across the board, which is great. And being able to stare at stats is there's kind of you get a little hit from are always changing. Like you can just go grab another little hit anytime you need to. And unlike buying gear, it is free or comparatively free. Um, and then I think that like refeeds back into motivation to make new thing, because you get to release, make a thing to release a thing. And so like there's always a new demo happening, and some of these are going to get turned into full-on songs, partially based actually on the very stats that I'm watching. Like if I've got something like a 1 minute demo or a 45-second demo, and suddenly it's blowing up, like now I know this needs to be finished because people do want to listen to it. So that's like marketing 101.
The feature that you're experiencing there with like actual feedback from the intention of your music, and that it's not just a personal event, it's a personal expression, and that expression requires a receiver of some sort. That's beautiful. It's really cool. I love hearing about this. Are you getting any other dimensions out of it other than just the numbers right now? I think we talked about this a little bit a few minutes ago, but characterize your how you check out what's going on, and what you do with that information a little bit more, if you could.
I like pay close attention to the the what do they call it, insights. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
um the I'm gonna gotta reset here.
Yeah, and then I don't mean you have like give me your numbers and tell
Oh
us
no, maybe
all
no,
your
no.
dirty laundry, but just wondering, because I know that like
I'm about
we're
to cross 300 plays for 1 month, which for me is a new peak. Like used to be, like if I can get 30 plays in a month, I was really happy. But like 300 in a month, well, heck, I'll take that. That's a noticeable improvement. I'm thinking that the day that or the month that I get, like I, hit 1,000 plays for 1 month, I'm gonna throw some sort of party. Like, is why would you not do that? I think,
yeah, go you. Absolutely.
yeah.
Um
And I
the
think that
Go
that's
on,
probably
sorry.
by the end of the summer. Because like I'm being really good about like these weekly releases. And the other nice thing about like just like getting it released and seeing results is like it is improving the stuff that I'm writing. Like 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 I'm noticing that like I am writing stuff that is more likable as I move forward on this. And like that's causing me to like actually use the techniques that I've watched the YouTube videos about.
Yeah.
And
Good for
like
you.
the latest release is going to be, I'm going to actually re-release it hopefully this week, but with vocals. So like as the other thing that I'm doing with these SoundCloud demos is they'll they can get re-released as they move forward through the like the creative process.
Yeah.
Document how I'm making the music as well.
Is all of this material going out to the sorry, what's the canonical word for the distributors that we're using? Aggravators? I know.
Uh, yeah, the like once like when it's just a demo, it's the name of the track will be like the date that it first got saved,
Oh, yeah, I get you.
and that will only ever live on SoundCloud.
Cool.
Once it's like a release candidate, it'll get actual song name. Once it's got an actual song name, like now it's like I will finish that track, and then that will get pushed up to that will get aggravated.
The sort of individual nature of what you're doing there, the way that you've developed something that works for you and feeds back into your own creative process is really inspirational. I want to see, does anybody else want to jump in with any similar or questions or details about how Ivan's operating this? I have a few more, but just, put a hand up or drop it in the chat. I heard you say something about routine, or you alluded to it a little bit, and habits and stuff. And I don't know if this is exactly relevant, but I've had a week or two where I added a new element to my day that sets me up for success. And there's two components to it. The first one is just to-do list. It's really basic. It's really simple. But the first thing on it is make coffee. And I've always already done that when I get to the desktop and can check it off. So there's a win. Yay, I checked a thing off already. Here's the coffee. I can prove it. And then there's a few other steps like look at inbox, look at calendar, look at sort order of things. And this fits into a process that I also already have, wasn't attending to. And just having these steps on a piece of screen real estate in text rather than, oh, you just know how you do it. You just know how you do it. You'll figure it out as you go. Just having them there and getting them checked off. Like everybody tells you this, every productivity guru says that's how you do it. Some productivity gurus agree that this is how you do it. I'm finding that it reduces my level of anxiety that I wasn't really recognizing. Brett, the checklist manifesto, I think also you allude in the chat about pilots using checklists. I mean, there is a reason that these things work for mission critical and life critical things for doctors and pilots and planes and jets, rockets. The last couple of things on my list are look at the stuff that already percolated into being today's actual like production tasks. Call this person and mix this track. Plus, make sure you at least look at the projects that are going. Look at the stuff that you've got in the running list and get rid of the stuff that is just confusing and you don't need and that you're never going to actually do. Just take it off the thing. It's going to come back if it's important. But the stuff that is maybe this month, maybe this year, like, okay, leave that there. And like I was saying, like not for me, not holding that in my head has freed me up to keep fewer things on the list and accept that I'm not going to do as much, but get them done and attend to them. And this is what I'm getting around to, Ivan, what you're talking about is do some of the stuff as release in public. And whether that's just hitting the go live button and streaming it or putting a post about it, I've been a little bit freer this past week to feel like I finished a thing and I can put it up or talk about it past 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, one of the things that I am learning rather quickly on this is that like my very short demos, the like sub-minute stuff, like going back and trying to like get that song finished,
Yeah.
like it becomes surprisingly difficult to go back and know where my head was at while writing that short piece. It's like now I'm finding myself thinking, okay, well, like stop doing that and like get these out to like a finished length to start with, and then then it's easier to go back and like flesh it out more and make changes because it's all there. So I'm hoping that helps because like that
it sounds like it absolutely could be helpful and test that out and like let's have an assessment. I'm going to jump to Diana, and I would like you to weigh in on this. You have something on your mind.
Couple things. Okay, so I basically am the one that does all of the MTV TV social media.
And thank you very much. Just I'd like to say that that is great for everyone.
Thanks. Trying to follow everyone that's on, whatever. But talking about SoundCloud, I was considering creating a SoundCloud specifically for the channel, just to follow all of the people, the artists that are on the channel that have a SoundCloud.
Yeah, I think as one that does look at SoundCloud and appreciates it when somebody thumbs up, comments, adds, shares, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying. But the thing is, like, okay, social media takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I want to do an aggregator, an agitator, because I want to have slightly different on each so that you want to go to and so that's the concern, is that you're not seeing the same thing on every single platform. So that's kind of why I wanted to start doing if you want to see the set list, you have to follow our Patreon, things like that.
Yes. I want to know specifically how you feel about that balance. And I will add that I'm kind of team direct, unique content, post less cross posting. As a matter of fact, Kitty and I were just talking about this earlier in the week about the idea of putting some of that automated cross posting on where it's appropriate and using that, leveraging it. Diana, what's your balance with that? How do you feel about doing it, and what the differences do you like to introduce?
Like I said, I think that I want to create specific posts. Okay, so I don't have a certain levels of Patreon, only get certain things. No, it's everybody. It's public posts. If you want to support us, that's fine. It's we run it kind of like, as Adam says, an NPR. Support us how you can, when you can.
Will there be a tote bag? Stop, go on. You interrupted. Good. Continue, please.
Or when one of our voices on your voicemail. I don't know.
Back to your levels of distinction between things, please.
But anyway, I honestly, we still need the support. It's community supported. So I want to, be creating specific posts that are only on our Patreon. So, hey, follow our Patreon, and this is, don't have to pay for, but follow our Patreon, support us on Patreon, how you can. And you'll see, here's the set list, things like that.
Yeah.
But then, like, technically the Facebook and the Instagram are the same posts usually, not always.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
literally same post, or do you by hand create a post?
But here's the thing: is different tags are on Facebook,
yep,
as opposed to Instagram, so you have to tag them differently anyway.
Yes.
So, like, following on the Bandcamp, following on the YouTube, following on different things, what I'll try to do is, if I see a post by one of the artists, I'll not only like, but even leave a little comment, just, thank you for being a part of the channel, something that also boosts them in the algorithm.
That's powerful, and also feels good, and fostering that kind of social connection. I mean, that's right in your wheelhouse.
It's connection, and it's, following up an email. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is, I've been trying to, so I don't feel sometimes I feel overwhelmed by the social media. I'm going to be honest. So to add one more thing, but if it's only just following on SoundCloud, that's not as overwhelming, if you will.
Yeah.
Is to schedule myself for when I'm doing different things and when I'm posting on different media, so that I don't overwhelm myself. Because, like, I'm not creating the images that far in advance to schedule posts. You
have a tighter schedule where some of your production happens weeks ahead of, or even a week ahead of airtime.
Yeah, like, I don't have a set list until even a week and a half, 2 weeks before the show. Right. So but again, okay, what I'm getting at is, and this might tie into something else. Well, first of all, I think the SoundCloud would be a good idea. I've been thinking about that for a while, and just follow the artists that are part of the channel. But the other thing is, like, last week, I had a ton of doctor's appointments and rescheduling my dialysis to different date, and it just wore me out. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I didn't get back to emails for a week because I couldn't do it. So, like, on this Monday, I spent the entire day getting back to emails, responding, doing this.
Yes. And Diana, that actually launches into something that I want to follow up with Brett and you about, though.
Okay, all right.
The specifically this, there was a gap in production and you're getting back to it. But Alex, also everybody think about hashtags. Alex, you wanted to jump in on the previous topic that Diana was talking about.
Yes, really quickly. I think you can also repost other people's tracks on SoundCloud. So that might also be a thing you can do if you want to.
Oh.
I am so bad at that, and I would love to get better at it and be way more into it. Alex, do you have direct experience on SoundCloud reposting?
No, not really. I have 2 tracks, and one has like 2 plays.
Well, we can put some more up and we'll do some experiments, I guess, is what I'm saying. Diana, before I go back to you in the middle of your awesome thoughts and stream of consciousness about that. Brett, you had mentioned this idea of getting back to work after being taken away from it. And well, this is important too. This is like, you know, you get thrown out of that flow and like you're in another part of the world or doing things that are completely other than creative process, like having medical equipment hooked up to you and being depleted of all your energy, perhaps, or having computers placed in front of you that need complete attention and maintenance. What do you do when you get back?
Oh, it's I don't have a good plan. You know,
Let's fix that. Everybody has to fix it for you.
well, and maybe there's something to leaving it broke a little bit as well. So, you know, it kind of depends on what's happening. There's been a few things that's kind of distracted me over the last few weeks. If we wanted to kind of take a look at it, part is, you know, working two bands at the same time. There's a bit of that, you know, there's a bit of that mental gymnastics that you got to get back into the habit of and get used to, and it's got to feel right again. And then, you know, it's like, okay, separation of duties. There's that aspect of it a little bit, you know, where, you know, how do you keep one band from sounding like the other? So therefore, you as musicians do different things to break things up. There's also then, you know, the like work, you know, and then, well, work represented, you know, about 3 or 4 days of solid 12 to 18-hour days. And so when you come back from that, you know, there's not much left in the tank. So really, today is probably the first day where I've started having some energy again. And it's kind of a weird thing because usually when I'm at my most creative, I'm also not in the best mood. So
yeah. So tapping in, letting your emotional space be something you can be present for, and not like having to put on the mask for day job.
Exactly, and
the mask culture.
Yeah, so I don't know that I have as much of a plan as much as it was a kind of it's kind of an instinct like that. I'm back to the studio because if I don't, I know the results. So
that, if I may, is the answer in, you know, writ small, but I'll exaggerate it and saying knowing that you need to do this and keeping it in mind and allowing yourself to be a creative person and recognizing that that is a component of yourself and not letting the bastards get you down, of course, you know, I think is a huge part of what this is about for a lot of people. Sure. Brett, do you have anything else that you wanted to sort of maybe just meditate on about today?
Yeah, one thing that music directly gives the ability where other creative outlets do not is it actually allows you to use your voice, and that is.
We're going to come back to exactly that. Absolutely, that is such a good way of putting it. Expressing your voice, Diana. Do you want to carry a little bit from where Brett was talking about getting back to it, since you definitely have that experience on a frequent basis? Specific tools or just the idea of it or how it makes you feel or anything? I mean,
I have to be in the right mindset. I'm going to tell you my like Carl's awake and he's up and going at 5 in the morning. I am most productive and most creative between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., sometimes 3 a.m. So it was more of kind of psyching myself up on Monday, you know, like I know, like, okay, this has to get done. I can't put it off any longer. I'm back to my regular routine.
Yeah.
So it was honestly kind of mentally preparing myself until I hit that point where, okay, I got to do this. And yeah, it was 11 o'clock in the evening, but I apologize. It wasn't Monday. It was Tuesday. I apologize, but
we're not holding you to it or keeping track or putting it on our
time is fuzzy. This past few weeks time, but anyway, it was psyching myself up to, okay, I have to do this, and then just it was part of it. And Carl's talked about this before, putting on your uniform. Like, okay, I'm gonna get dressed into a you know, like I'm gonna go out and be working and doing something. So even though I was in my pajamas for most of the day, it's like, you know what, I have to do this. Just changing,
Yep.
it kind of mentally shifted. And then also moving out of my bedroom and my space back there into, you know, out here by the desk where it's like, okay, this is my workspace. This is the space I need to work.
It is very familiar. And I
And
support and underscore the act of getting out of bed and doing things like brushing teeth and putting clothes on and turning on a light or whatever the things are that happen before the coffee are, they're sometimes difficult. They're sometimes impossible, for sure. Like sometimes you can't even do that. So having them as a ready routine and respecting that they are achievements in some small way, like I dig that.
and then there's one thing that I have learned, and it's taken me a long time to learn, is like, well, if I'm here anyway, then I need to do at least one thing. And once I've done the one thing, well, I'm here anyway, I might as well do the next thing. And it kind of builds upon itself until all of a sudden, you know, you're in that flow state. And it's not easy and it doesn't happen all the time, but the just do one thing can lead to the rest of it.
Yeah. And setting yourself up so that it can is part of the game I think we're all talking about.
Yep.
If anybody else wants to get an angle in on the specifically switching from a period of inactivity back to activity, I'd like to also go right back to it. But I wanted to mention one thing that I had an experience with a long time ago. I had a job in a place at a time, and I was really worried about it. I was like, oh, this is going to ruin I'm not going to be rock and roll anymore. I have to go to a place and do a thing. And how am I going to hang out in the studio all day? It didn't work that way at all. Functionally, it was like, oh, the day is done. I get back. And I was looking forward to creative time. And I found it not any more difficult to access creative time at the same time of day that I was previously before this day job situation. It was surprising. I didn't quite realize that. I think a lot of people who would do freelance work or just work periodically or can't work because of, you know, any reason that keeps them from going to a place or, you know, repeatedly doing a thing. There's a lot of reasons to not have that. But I did for a while, and it was still good to get to the studio to go do the thing. And I don't know if it's sustainable for me. Like, couple hours a day max of productivity anyway, so I got to divide it up correctly. But there is a transition period, and then I stayed away from creative work and I really have to do something. Alex, does that happen to you, or is this a different angle?
What tends to work best for me is to just allocate a certain slot of time for something and not thinking about results, but just trying to use this time to work on it. May it be fruitful or not, just put in the time and then it's done. And also I've been thinking about trying out what Carl does with just being creative in the morning before doing actual work. Because anyway, for some reason, I just wake up at a certain hour of the day and I can't get to sleep anyway. So I might as well use the time and be creative.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I've been getting up 2 hours before wake up time pretty regularly this past. It happens. It's a thing that happens. I'm not able to do creative work though. I'm kind of in a torpor for 2 hours. But there's another little thing to consider, and I don't know if it's a universal, throwing it out to anybody else who feels this way, but my creative period is attached to my circadian experience, not the diurnal one as much. I like it dark. I've got curtains up to keep it blacked out and stuff, so I don't have to worry about what time of day it actually is, but less influential on it's time to rock, you know, is the course of the earth and sun relationship, and much more into when I went to sleep and how tired I am. And I get the motivation 20 minutes before I'm going to crash, a half hour before it's really bedtime. I don't know I can't figure out all reliable ways around that, but there's, I don't know if it's a liminal state or a dream, encroachment or something, but there's a thing about the end of the day, the after everything else goes away. There may be other ways to get there, but I find that I don't, it could be 9 p.m. It's kind of like whatever. It's not even cool. It could be 3 a.m. It could be 6 a.m. Long day, did lots of stuff, sat around staring at the piano keyboard and thought about doing things. And then finally, oh, I have to go to bed soon. Let's rock. Ugh, weird. Ivan, jump in.
Okay, time management is probably the thing that I'm the worst at ever. Like I don't buy watches that have easy space.
Right, okay. I see.
Because my relationship with time is so bad that vaguely time enough is close enough for me.
Ivan, I just want to say a shrink once called me out for trying out pocket watches. He's like, oh, so you just don't want to know what time it is. I see.
I've got a number of pocket watches.
Yes.
And the answer is yes. Don't make me, because time is a horrible mess for me. On a good day, on a very good day. The working a day job, because this is not my full-time job. If it was, I would not be eating or living in a house or anything. But having a good old-fashioned day job, it adds some structure to my day, which I probably need. I'm not going to really fight that. I need it. And it makes me value my creative time that much more, because now the time that I've got to just be creative and do something crazy or try something new or just be me is not, it's not the whole day. Like, part of it's taken up with me doing work. The part that I get to do exactly what I want, which is actually work on music mostly. I value it way more now that I can't just do it when I want.
Yeah.
If the muse is sitting on my shoulder, humming a tune into my ear, I don't care what time of night it is.
Right on, yeah.
Get up and go get that out of my head and onto the piano roll.
Speaking of habits and being in the practice, I'm going to jump to Brad, if it's cool. Do you have something to add right about that?
Well, it was more kind of riffing off of something you were saying there about, when ideas come to you and whatnot. And I found that I do the same thing. I find that it's usually like my pattern is when I'm trying to go to sleep, I can think of all those things I want to do tomorrow.
That's so excellent. I mean, that's like self-preservation and like identity and reason to be and purpose in the universe stuff. Go.
And I find when I wake up, it's almost like Mr. Hyde took over. And while those things are still back there, there's a new script running. That's the way it kind of seems to work for me.
I don't quite follow that. Tell me a little bit more. Give me some detail about this script, how it differs and where it comes from. What does that mean to you?
So I don't know. There's things I commonly think about when I wake up. They're usually sources of irritation of some sort.
Yeah, I understand.
And throughout the day, those or whatever get pushed aside, and and then you get to the points where it's like, okay, cool, I can create, and then so it's like when you go to sleep, or when I'm starting to go to sleep and my mind starts to quiet down, that's when I can start to kind of think more about those, I guess, and I get more ideas. They kind of, I don't know. That's why I kind of mean it's different, It's like it's almost like if I've got all my energy, I've got too much.
Yes.
And It's
Understood.
like I need to wear the batteries down a little bit so that the noise isn't as loud for the creative parts of me or something.
Thanks for filling me in on that. Like, I get it much more now. I know I'm like pushing to like, hey, tell me about your stuff, personal life and things. But like, I think it's helpful, and I think that's part of what we're here to share about is maybe some of the things that are a little bit harder to just access in regular conversation and breaking down some of the stigmas. But the noise versus finding meaning in the noise, that takes effort and energy and practice and stuff too, for sure, for me.
Yeah.
Does anybody else, Brett, do you have more to go with on that? Anybody else want to weigh in on still that sort of space about finding from distraction and things taking you away from the creative work to the creative work, that change, that time? I'm ready to go back to one little element that I wanted to also mention about once I'm back to the tasks, and these aren't necessarily purely creative tasks where I have flow state and don't worry about sticking to it, and I forgot that time is going by. These are I really need to work on graphic. I really need to do, maybe you can relate, figuring out just if it's the IRC code that goes with the mechanical license or the DSPs send the song ID, like things like that. I can't even articulate it to describe what I was talking about. It's that kind of confusion. I found that when I do mixes, I write down what the state of the mix is in text. I would write like, this needs, bar 3 has a flat, I make it sharp. Riser after chorus, things like that. I will keep a running thing. And sometimes that spans sessions, and sometimes it's just in the moment. But even more, like doing that in the moment, these aren't session notes anymore. They're moment notes. They're what I am working on now notes. And I noticed I was doing that with other kinds of things, like just working on moving some files around on hard drives this week. A little bit confusing to remember which disk is which, and I don't want to lose anything, and I want to make sure they're backed up. I was leaving breadcrumbs in text. It's been said that maybe you should do this with handwriting in different colors and in pencil, so you really internalize it. But I was doing it typing because, it's in front of me on the screen. Step 1, done. I figured out where the files go. Step 2, I found out that there's a backup of them. Step 3, and I'm keeping actual state instead of up here and fighting to keep it laser focused. I can look away and I can go back to those steps. And I managed to, I think, like I have to trust myself that I checked it off, get through a task that was unwieldy and complicated and something I have a lot of aversion to doing in the first place that I don't want to mess up. And doing that as a little breadcrumb trail for myself in the moment, I think there's something that relates to the switching contexts from outside world to creative world in that also, about taking those steps. And I would love to know if anybody does, maybe next week, maybe in a month, recognize that there are some steps to take to switching from, I had to go to a conference about databases, to I want to play guitar. And maybe it just happens automatically. Maybe there is no steps. Maybe that doesn't exist. And maybe nobody, people don't have to force it. Maybe it's different every time. I think we've probably run that one to death. Alex, do you have something else you wanted to do, or are you going to resurrect it after I just stomped on it like that?
No, I just wanted to say that I know exactly what you mean, because it always takes me maybe 20 minutes to switch context, especially if it's like something that's like, as you said, a conference, which is like demanding in a way because you have to pay attention all the time, to being creative, which is like a wholly different mindset. And also sometimes I'm really exhausted after like work kind of things that keeps me from being creative.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best way for myself to get out of that is to just try to not consume much media, but just meditate, be in the moment, readjust. It's really, really hard because, like, I think many of us have become addicted to information just showering from above into your brain. But I think if you want to be creative, just meditating, maybe, I don't know, listening to music, but consciously is like the
Yeah.
best thing you can do.
Yeah,
But it's really hard.
it is. I think we have a really similar experience there, and I think probably everybody's nodding in different times as we've been talking about this, and everybody recognizes these challenges. We don't necessarily need answers, but I'm glad we're all still, making tunes and promoting tunes and making videos and stuff. I mean, that's what this is. We're doing it now. I mean, technically, so hey, good on y'all. One of the other things that we were going to talk about, speaking of like really switching contexts, I got two that I'm looking at here, and I don't know which one's more of a 180. One of them might be a 360 or a 720. I don't know exactly how many degrees it is. I don't have a protractor. But do you want to like go like this if you want to talk about like actual production stuff, like music gear kind of things? Is there okay, this is cool. So Ivan, you mentioned gates. And I was like, for livestock? And you were like, no, the kind for music. And I said, Keypex or Drummer. And that was kind of the end of the conversation because nobody has hardware gates at all. Although I did 30 years ago get a really good deal on a Korg 2-channel parametric EQ gate compressor assignable with 4 inputs with a little switching matrix that had patch points on the back. So that was my gate. That was my hardware gate for a long time. Two channels probably of keyable gate, fast as you wanted, microsecond triggering. But it got wet. I had a flood a long time ago, and it actually doesn't exist anymore, I'm sure. But it was great. It was like music store discount, so you get 10% up from cost, and they bought them at like a really low price, so the retail was like here. Anyway, that's how I ended up with the gate. Ivan, what about you?
Yeah, no, I saw a YouTube video where they were demoing this like ancient but very good, 2-channel gate from the 80s that
it was the Drummer. I absolutely right with you. Fast, clicky, pulsy.
Those things apparently are magical, and you can get them on eBay now for like a surprisingly low price.
They're not that cheap. I looked on Reverb immediately, and they were up in the 150 range. Now for the working ones, they're under 100 for broken ones. But yes, go on.
I don't view that as for rack gear. I don't think of that as being terribly overpriced, especially if it's going to do something magical, which that one apparently can do. But Ableton's got a gate tool built in, and it is fully tweakable, and you can make it do pretty magical things on its own. So I started messing with I've got like the regular drum tracks, and then I've got a silent rhythm track of very short clicks that runs along with everything, and then it operates the gate for like a really long chunk of it was Christopher Walken, 1972, the Mind Snatchers.
Speech sample.
Yes,
Gotcha.
and so like that's it's coming through just enough that that it's that there's some voicing going on.
I'm going to throw out a couple of terms while you're doing this, and I hope you can get back to it after my interruption. But gate, music running through the gate would get silent and not silent in the extreme. That is all a gate does, really. Like when the music gets quiet enough, it gets really quiet, shuts it all the way off. If it's supposed to be silent, it's really silent. Also, you can use a key input to the gate and open and close the gate using the key source. Ivan is talking about putting a rhythmic track into the key. The music or speech is still going through the opening and closing gate, but you are keying it with a separate source and doing some gorgeous, brilliant, striking rhythmic manipulation of the volume, which let's just call it on and off, because we're not changing the threshold or amount. We're just turning it on and off. But you're doing a stutter effect, a trance effect, a thing that doesn't occur in nature effect. It is a extreme rhythmic starting and stopping of a sound, possibly using another sound. Ivan?
Yes.
Please continue.
And like on the same track, I also tried out doing that against a pad.
Gate.
Because like, that sounds like fun, but it's just not fitting into it. So stop using it. But like the cool thing is, in this latest track, like, it is already up on SoundCloud. It's one of my demos. Like it's got this really nice, like skinny puppy Hexanox sort of sound to it now. And it's like, oh, this is, it turned out nice. I'm super pleased with it. This track's now going to get real lyrics because I'm that happy.
Inspiration.
Yeah, and like I just want to keep messing with these ideas more now because more like incidental crazy that I can add to the track, like that.
Yeah,
the happier I am, and the gates are the answer to that.
it's rhythmic.
Yeah, and not just like you could set that rhythm up however it needs to be to work with everything else that's going on.
Yeah. I mean, that is truly like the material that's getting volume stomped and opened can be entirely different. That's the point, than the thing that is causing the stomping to happen. The rhythmic components don't have to match. It can be a continuous tone that's getting volume changes and stutters and stuff. And the thing that's doing it could be a kick drum, it could be a hi-hat, it could be a click, it could be a full drum part, it could be something that's very fast and on the verge and causing distortion noise. I want to jump to Alex because I know you've done something in this regard that's going to change our minds entirely about how to approach gates.
Well, that's maybe a bit much, but
all right, you're right.
I really love them in software, especially for guitars, because they just clean the signal up in a very nice way. I think I have a stump pedal which has a gate. No, that you say it. But what really had an impact on me was actually Angelspit related, because Carl has a Blipword up where he uses gates from just MIDI to CV converters.
Right.
To turn on and off VCAs, and he ran drum loops through it and selected which parts were playing and which not. And I really enjoyed this hard on-off sound. Like the drums were like really punchy because like the whole tail was gone, and I really enjoy the sound. I think the Blipword is called Hell Drums or something.
Okay, cool. I haven't actually gone back through some of those, and I know there are a bunch that I've missed, and I'm interested in that. And I think it's a good opportunity to check out the Angelspit YouTube channel. Does have a lot of material to go
exactly
through and look at.
Especially when I was 16, it had like a really big impact on me.
Yeah. That's what got me here with Blipwords. So hey, totally there. Go on.
I wanted to say something else, but I forgot. So maybe
hang on to it. We'll be back. The other thing with a gate is, classically and very importantly, I don't think we'd be talking if gated reverb hadn't been invented, because I think the entire genesis of all the genres that we're involved in kind of center around, I guess it was Hugh Padgham and Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins using a gated hard cut on the end of either a room sound of reverberant drums or the digital reverb. I may be wrong on Hugh Padgham. I don't know who was actually producing at the time. Please correct me if I don't have that. But that time period is when we invented the gated reverb also, and doing it with a real digital reverb or a real room, keying the gate with the snare drum, for instance, so that it opens, reverb happens, gate closes hard. And you get a very unnatural, very dramatic, full sound of a drum hit that doesn't make any sense, that the tail then cuts off. And Alex, when you mentioned also using it to clean up guitars and things like that, cutting off these tails is another, like really huge function of the like, also, why gates existed, like to clean things up. Like noise gates were to make the noise of tape tracks and open mics disappear. Like when you had 16 or 8 tracks of magnetic tape running open, and there's not anything going on 4 of those tracks, 3 of those tracks, you gate it off turn that thing, because you don't need the tape hiss. Why put the tape hiss on the master? Just use a gate, clean it up. So between cleaning up tape hiss and doing this effect that they invented with the noise gate, and also the famous SSL talkback mic was involved in this same story. I'm probably conflating things like crazy, but it's a pretty exciting time for me and formative about some of the sounds that we're all using today, because every single person who's been on this panel and recorded anything has used a sample of a gated snare with reverb built in that was probably born in approximately the time that we're talking about there. So I think we all owe a debt to gated reverb exactly on that. And I don't know, there were some other things about noise gates that are probably significant, but Alex, if anything comes back to you, or Ivan or Brett, Diana, you had mentioned recently, I don't know, it was a few weeks ago, but something, and refresh my memory, something about noise removal. And Brett, I remember you had things to add to this too. Did we exhaust that topic about the idea of how noise works and how that fits into gates, Diana?
I'm trying to remember what I was talking about at that
No
point.
pressure if you don't, but it was something that I found interesting and I had left in my notes and I didn't quite remember the context. And Brett, I'll give you the chance too. Do you remember if there was anything that we hadn't covered?
I
Oh,
think
so go ahead, Diana.
Sorry. I apologize. I think it was just the curiosity of when actually adding noise, like sweeps and things, helps add to the dynamics of the track.
Hold that. I love it. And Alex, you might be jumping back to removing the noise rather than adding it.
No, I remembered what I wanted to say. It's not related to gates, but kind of the opposite with envelope followers.
Okay.
Maybe
that relates directly to what Diane is talking about. Do you want to talk about a little bit about creative use of shaping that noise then, instead of just gating it off with dynamic filters? Is that something in your practice, or does that take you out of the zone that you were pushing toward?
I was talking about maybe not directly, no.
Come back to it then. I would like to sort of dwell on the idea of noise and ambience just a little bit, since we are talking about the removal of it. And my earliest memories, and maybe this is significant for everybody, I don't know, maybe it was weird. One of my earliest memories was hearing of music, of paying attention to recordings rather than just listening to songs, was hearing the tape print through on a Led Zeppelin song. I don't know, something off Zeppelin 2. Like, that's not part of the performance. I don't think it was in time. It's just something that it's an artifact. And then around that same time, I remember hearing the room around a guitar amp, like the reverberation, not the stuff that they put out. There was no echo on it. There was no chorus. It was just a dry rock and roll track of some sort. And like the chord stopped. Maybe it was AC/DC. I don't know. And you could hear what room they were in. Like, you could hear the reverb. Like, recognize that. Listen for those things. And compression is definitely about bringing those things in. It is about using the sound of the room and the noise and the things that are amp hiss and the Leslie speaker spinning around, making a whirring noise before the person plays the chord, and the rush of breath up to the microphone that the singer is making, and the valve flipping on the horn part that's you're never going to hear, but when you get the multi-tracks, it's in there. These are the glue and the magic and the crystal around the music that make it sound like something, that these noise gates kind of started robbing us of in brilliant effect. I mean, there's some great sterilized, staccato, very controlled recordings that came out of those practices. But we go back to the weird, gritty, noisy stuff. Brett, does that have anything to do with where you were thinking about it, or have I started hallucinating?
Noise with me means a lot of different things. So, and one is environmental. And this is one of the things I touched on last week, or last time we talked about this, and that is, if you're imagining, pretend it's not a song, pretend it's a movie. You know, if you do instrumentals and whatnot, you want to convey a message, you know, and you're not going to use the human voice to do so. You're not going to use language. You've got to do other things creatively to put that person in a similar mindset to understand what they're hearing. And so for me, it's imagining where things exist and what they sound like in that world. One of the, you know, and a simple example, you know, is, you know, we sat there and we kind of did a discussion with Carl about what does the aurora sound like. That is something I try to do when I actually finish a song. Is, you know, one of those pieces is like of whether or not a song's finished is whether or not, lyrics or not, it transports you to a different place. And usually it's a dark world in my case, but
yeah.
and you know, it's like, even while we're sitting here talking, you know, I'm blending strings and noises together in the background right now because, you know, I want you know, I know right now I'm working on something where I want a kind of building sort of harmony, or building, you know, it's really just a couple notes going back and forth, and it's just kind of creepy, but it's kind of pretty at the same time. But I don't want it to be too nice. So that's where noise becomes really important. You know, some noises are dissonant, and they warn the ear, and they tell you there's danger. You know, there's things like, you know, it's quiet, and all of a sudden you hear an animal screech. You know whether that thing is 5 feet away from you, 10 feet away from you, 20 feet away from you, and you know whether it's coming at you or it's going away, like that.
Do you have the power to use and exploit those human abilities of location from the Doppler shift and from the echoes on the pinna of the outer ear and the echoes of the forest and walls around us, and to exploit that and take advantage of it and tell your story using those things? Exactly. I'm intrigued.
And so I use filters, and there used to be a tool that I used a lot when I was a kid. It was called Q Sound, in which you could actually draw in spatial reference where you wanted an object to come from and how you wanted it to move. And it was a very pirated copy that I've long since lost, and it's not worth, you know,
that you owned a license to and bought legally.
Exactly. And one of the arguments there, you know, becomes another thing of whether or not you want to mix to something like a static speaker and have it sound good on everything, or if you want to put it in headphone space and transport somebody. And it's two very different worlds. And I prefer the latter. You know, I rather be okay on every system, but you put on your favorite set of headphones and it's like, okay, cool, you're mine now.
Yeah.
You know, the creatures can come out of the darkness, and they can sit there and they can move around you, and they can sometimes come from inside your head. You do different things with noise there too, where two sine waves, one phase shifted slightly off.
Yep.
Makes it tricks the brain.
That is the psychoacoustic effect. Exactly. When you do it binaurally, it was very convincing. I think we've brought up Atmos a couple of times in the past few months, and nobody's mixing on an Atmos system out of the group. I know we're not, although Rob, I believe, is playing with some spatialization, and he's got a lot of thoughts on the thing. I have hopes for the future of being able to do animated localized audio where I'm going to throw out a couple of terms, head related transfer function that the simulation of space is doing really works for a lot of people, and the compatibility of your system will simulate the head reflections and outer ear reflections and occlusion of the shape of your head from things coming from this side being blocked and occlusion from this side for this ear being blocked. Like all of those things, they take some computational power, because the minute you shift your head, they change entirely. All of those tiny phase relationships go haywire. we have the computing power to do that now. We can certainly also scan visually the outer ear and make your own head-related transfer function that is yours and do the head tracking with your, things that have that capability. There's a lot of systems that do it. I have hopes for it. I don't think it doesn't work for me yet. I don't enjoy it at all, and I don't care to mix in it. And I think most of the mixes suck, but we've already covered that. That's opinion. Because a lot of people really love it already, and it's super encouraging that we will reliably, possibly, if Apple and Dolby Labs have their way, have a good system with at least Pro Tools and Logic to do a 3D. You can throw your thing around in space. It sounds real. That's my sort of soapbox version of it. I'm going to come back to you, Brett, if you do have more to add. I want to let Alex get a word in.
I think as a consumer system, Dolby Atmos, if I had to bet, it will never fully break through, because I think the average music listener doesn't care so much about spatiality, but more about sound and how impactful it is, but not really about spatial localization. At least that's my take. But for me personally, I've been really interested in maybe binaural stuff, and
Yes.
if anybody has maybe affordable plug-in solution to place stuff more spatially, even if it's not like the most mathematically.
You're talking about Spätzle audio?
Yeah, Spätzle. It's something to just simulate the effect of speakers a bit, because for me, having like this hard binaural, how did you say it? If it's just different in both ears, it's uncomfortable for me to listen. So if anybody has like a good software solution, then I would be.
I will try to find the thing that I have that does the. I mean, Waves has one, but it's probably expensive and then goes on sale for like next to nothing. But there are either sample your room with a ringing it out with a sweep, or an impact, and you'll get your room on that kind of thing. And there are you're supposed to put them at the end of your chain so that it's always simulating a good studio room and you're always mixing through it. There are things that exist. I don't have that, but interestingly, I'm on your side about like this. The consumers don't care. Like, absolutely. I don't think anybody really hears it. And if you do, it's because you're really concentrating and want to hear it, and that's fine. But there's enough probably momentum behind it to just give this away for free and make it part of the whole thing. Like, it's not a thing that right now people who have a certain setup have to wonder about, because they can just turn it on and their headphones are tracking and the thing is doing the simulated room. And I don't want a binaural room around my mix. I really don't. I get it. I totally don't. But I think that it's now, I'm not so sure that nobody cares, so it's not going to happen. I'm a little worried. Like, it's only going to get better, at least. But yeah, in case I'm not being clear, turning on Atmos with headphones is unrelated to turning on Atmos with a multi-speaker system. They are two different things, and calling them the same thing is unfortunate. Atmos is a very complicated, and for certain applications, you can build a very convincing dimensional environment where sounds might really feel localized because they're coming from actual speakers. It is also a simulated binaural space, and this is a little bit of what Alex was talking about, whether it's good to listen to or not. Depends a lot on how it's set up. But that simulated version is the thing that I don't enjoy. And the real version with actual speakers being called the same thing, I can't afford to set up. I mean, I took all my speakers out of places and hooked them all up to separate channel amps, and I got enough channels, just enough to listen to a couple of Atmos mixes when they were first pushing it. And it was cool. Like, yay, the Rocket Man, vocals are coming from over here. It's just like 1962 when they were doing stereo mixes with the bass guitar on the left. Like, what that doesn't do anything for me. So, ending my rant. Alex, your hand is still up. Did you want to jump back in, or?
Yes, as I said, I don't need the best simulation, but I think it could be a fun way to create more stereo experience into your mix. At least that's what I thought about my own music.
Yeah.
Also, there are no affordable binaural microphones that you just put over your ear. And if I had the money to just spend something on something that's like not that necessary, I think I would get them because that sounds really fun.
Yes. I've had the pleasure of I don't know if it's a Sennheiser or Schoeps, I don't remember which one, but there's a dummy head mic that I have been on a recording session with acoustic guitar recording, and it was like the guitar is not moving around. That's a neat effect, but you really need something actually moving in the space to have a dummy head binaural recording mean something, or you have to move the head around. But yeah, I'm with you. I think we have a lot of the same thoughts and feelings on that, and it's interesting to watch technology offer us things to play with, and how listeners might even expect or wonder if those things are happening. But I don't worry about them. I don't do any advanced spatialization or anything. I'll put a phaser on it and, woo, all right, or pan something left and right. I'm totally into that. But doing sort of convincing like above and below and behind stuff doesn't work well enough for me to offer it, generally speaking. Ivan, jump in.
Yeah, I've been, I've got stuff that I use Brower Motion, the plugin, to
Interesting.
Get one of the parts to do this, or get parts to interact. It seems to work reasonably well. At the same time, like bass and kick drums are dead center pretty much all.
No, the drum set's on the left and the bass guitar is on the right. That's rock and roll.
I'm gonna do a demo where I try to get as much phase cancellation as I can.
Right. So what you're saying is 808 kick, pan to the left with a duplicate bus feed of it about 10, 15 samples delayed. And everybody thinks their head's imploding. And they yell at you because there's no bass in the middle of the dance floor at all. And they're in a node. Alex, save me.
Ooh.
That reminds me.
Let me let Ivan finish. Alex, okay, sorry. Come back. It's cool.
Like I make different like versions. So like if I'm expecting something to be on dance floor, I'm almost certainly just going to do that in mono. But like stuff that I want people to listen to on headphones or in their car, then I'm gonna go crazy. And if it's just like casual, like I'm just releasing it, then I just don't do that hard, and just let it be stereo.
Yeah. All right. Let's let Alex please come back.
As a listener, sometimes I find too much spatiality even distracting. Mm-hmm. Usually it's not an issue. Maybe like the synth line goes around your head. Wow, that's cool. But like they're those old Beatles recordings where things are so hard panned, it's making me actually uncomfortable. I think that I like the first stereo pressings, and they're also unfortunately the ones that are on Spotify and Apple Music and the other ones. Yeah, I think that's like the worst path to take.
I think this is far afield topic, but also very interesting. And the Giles last name, whatever, the newer mixes, the remixes from the masters that drawing a blank on the name, did recently of the Beatles stuff, fixed a lot of that stuff. Like the stereo mixes were kind of an afterthought from the early Beatles recordings for sure. And there's these dumb panning things. And anyway, they're kind of far off our topic from this, but I've had a lot of fun listening to the remixes that correct some of those weird conventions about bass drum on the left, bass guitar on the right kind of business, which, yeah, there may be reasons to do that, but they were not doing it deliberately. They were experimenting with stereo at the time, I think is the consensus. And Diana, like the whole like sort of philosophical angle that we've launched off of about noise versus sound, or content versus stuff you're removing, or filtering off things that you consider that you don't want, is indeed like kind of just making music. Like that's like a big part of what we're doing. Like there's this like sort of roiling idea of what you might want to have, and you've already got to filter some of that by category. No, I'm just talking about the bass frequencies. So like the act of just committing something, you're already doing sort of this like latent song noise into, you know, one channel of frequencies and rhythms, and you're right in the bass part, and then all these other sounds aren't, like, you may not even be considering those for a while. So I know that's sort of the imagination end of things, but I did want to bring it back to a grounded. There's still a million approaches to the distinction between chaos and order that we're making in composing music. And Brett's got some amazing points about how he shapes that. And the Beatles in 62 had a different idea about how to shape that. And for my money, I'm thinking about like all the weird noises that are left on tapes is some of my favorite things, on tapes that, you know, from tapes that made it onto the radio, and these like unintentional distortions. But like, yeah, in a very real way, the whole act of, if we're going to go metaphor from sculpture, of creating a song is turning some of the things that are just random noise into some sort of ordered noise. So it's such a broad and interesting topic. Does that sort of touch on the things you were thinking about, or have we like completely overshot it and like missed the mark? If you don't mind just guiding us back to where you were coming from.
I think that hits the mark. Kind of wishing Adam was here, because Adam can.
I do
talk
too.
a
Yeah,
whole
of course.
lot
Yeah.
Sweeps and everything else, but
Yep.
but it hits the mark.
Good. I think that Adam would have some very specific things to say about using tools in action to do some filtering and gating and things, and we'll come back to it for sure at another time, because we haven't exhausted it by any stretch, since it is the whole of making noise into tunes. There was maybe one other thing we wanted to talk about, but I don't want to get on into a new thing. If everybody's like kind of exhausted from talking about it, I can't concentrate on another topic that's a new branch of philosophy. So I think we could wrap it up. Does anybody want to jump in with anything like good about the week, or that they want to draw our attention to? I want to point out that oh yeah, the new Cell Mod EP is out, and I'm on that, so I'm totally psyched to say, just like in your stream, wherever it says Cell Mod, click on that sometime. Alex?
Maybe a quick PSA from myself. If you are in the situation like me and you suddenly feel that you don't hear as much high end on one ear and suspect it might be due to earwax, those kits from the pharmacy to clean out your ears work wonders. At least they did on me.
That is fantastic. I would definitely, a couple of 2 times in my life, have loved to have had that result. Also go to the audiologist if that doesn't work, I will add, because it could be something else. I'll tell you about it. Ivan, Brett, Diana, I know you've got one thing you want to mention about upcoming and that I'm actually excited for. There's been, I missed the boat on this one. Sean, is it Driscoll? Wrote a book on the club scene, Man Ray, and he did a lot of interviews and stuff. And it was a time when I wasn't participating. I was kind of like off. I feel like I missed out on it, and I'm really psyched that there's some publicity and things that I can go back and look at about this, because it is the history of the club scene that I came up in, and then where I've like found people in human contact. And Dana, what's next with that?
Yeah, well, we're excited because this Wednesday at 5:00 Eastern is New Music O'Clock, but it's also the highlight on spotlight on Sean Driscoll, who is the author of We Are But Your Children, an oral history of the nightclub Man Ray. That's the entire title of the book. And talking about the nightclub scene in Boston, specifically for Man Ray. And it's our first time talking to an author, not just a musician, but an author. And we're very excited for that. We just interviewed him last night. And yeah, talking about the book and about this
I'm going to jump in
club
while
scene.
you're re-resing because you locked up for a second there. But if you give yourself a chance, I want to come back to you to finish the thought. I've jumped in on a couple of his things that he's posted about the people that he used as editors and contributors, and I regret not having responded to be a contributor in this thing very deeply. Couldn't do it at the time, but there are some characters in this scene, of course, that just it's amazing to watch. And I would love to talk about some of the queer roots and how this scene came to be and how some of the reasons people were going to the club that Man ran. A lot of our scenes run adjacent to fetish and other kinds of expression nights for that aren't related to music scenes, that are deeply personal for people and meaningful in ways that like going to listen to some cool tunes works really well with. But Diana, it looks like you're back, so please finish your thought.
Aha.
Yes.
We're just really excited for this one. Again, it goes not only into the history of the scene, but a little bit into, like Adam's talking a little bit about his history too with the nightclub itself. So
great,
it's a very personal interview.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it. And by the way, depending, I assume our efforts will be posted really soon. The recording date right now is Saturday, May 25th in Boston, where I'm talking from. So hopefully if anybody catches these mentions, and maybe we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, anybody want to put a cap on it, or is it, or are we done here? We're good. You have contributed so much to my day personally, and I thank you for that. And that's it. I'm just going to wrap it up. Since I'm the one talking, I'm the one on the screen. I'm going to say thank you for watching and thank you for being here. And thank everybody for contributing. And that's that. Have a good one. Take care.